We felt that the process very much needed women like ourselves who had had the experience of standing in each other's shoes and having worked across the divide and having no difficulty doing that. Most of the men only knew each other, had grown up with each other, had told their problems to each other, whereas we had had a very different experience, because when you're experiencing domestic violence or sex abuse or rape or any of these issues, you actually have refuges and centres where women are coming from all sides. And also we had formed a women's rights movement as far back as 1975, after the civil rights movement, which I had been a participant in. And we had huge experience of talking and working with each other. And it didn't provide us with any difficulties to go into very dangerous communities that these men on either side would have refused to have gone into. That's still the case, actually, in 2002. We're the only political party that is still accepted in all of the communities, and I can put my poster up in every community without it being torn down or without me being run out of the community. I'm not perceived as being an enemy of any of them. And so we felt that that process that we had engaged in would help us with the substance, because we figured that if we knew what was needed from each side, then we could put that on the table, probably much sooner than what they would arrive at themselves. And that turned out to be the case, that the content that we'd worked on in terms of the future governance of Northern Ireland and how we would be governed, how we would vote, how we would set up the institutions, also in terms of the policing situation of law and order. Also, we brought many different issues on substance, such as what we would do with victims and the future of integrated education, educating Protestant Catholic children together. We wrote that into the agreement.
We developed this forum, regular forum, where we are going there and listening to people. Since I speak these languages, local languages, so I really listen to them. And I didn't hate, I didn't send my advisors or somebody else to do it. I went myself. And International Co-Head, both of us went together there, and we just provided that space. So everybody from 3 different communities, not only their political leadership, political party leadership, but other people, we announced that and they could come. And remember, this was a time when people are getting killed, either from Albanian radicals, national, they didn't want communication. They were thinking just the best way to get rid of ethnic conflict is to get rid of one ethnicity, or by Serbian spies and agents from Milosevic that were just rampaging around, and and their secret service working around. It was a dangerous time. So we went and we developed this forum, and weekly we're talking with them, weekly, really, and listening to their fears, listening to their vision. Maybe I had more open doors because I really had a hand and pulse of people. Maybe it helped me because I'm a physician. So, and I always practiced, even at the time when that opportunity was denied to me, I did practice. So I listened to people and I knew what's going on. And then if I see that there is a problem there that I really can address and I can help solve, so I was there. And so people start recognizing that. And because I was a woman, I was more interested to find out what's going on, and I had that opportunity.
The first story was told by a woman named Awood Deng. She's a Sudanese peace builder from the region of Bahr al-Ghazal, southern Sudan. She has been increasingly involved in the peace talks in Nairobi, and she has also been active in mobilizing a lot of women in her own community. A lot of people were interested to know how she gets, women organized in a war zone to talk about the political issues and to talk about women's mobilization in post-conflict Sudan. She talked about the fact that they don't have a specific fancy place where they can meet to talk about politics, but they meet under a tree. And so the image that comes to mind of a group of women chatting under the tree is very easily dismissible as just women chatting. And in that sense, they are able really to mobilize a lot of energy and without really fear of retribution from passers-by or from men who otherwise may seem very intimidated by political discussions. The other story is about two women who work for an international organization from the region of Darfur. They feel that as women, they have a greater access to talk to rape victims whose numbers are extremely high. These women, some of them live in different displaced camps in the Sudan and also across the Darfur-Chad border. Because women are easily dismissed, they were able really to talk to these camp presidents about their own experiences of rape. Right now, in a situation where we need political accountability and we need documentation of crimes against humanity, these women have the best opportunity to document rape as a crime of genocide and a crime of humanity. Going back to the issue of the gender stereotypes, they are exactly able to do that because nobody would really care so much about a group of women chatting.
Women have a special role. I'm a woman and I'm a mother. And it's in our experience that in decision making, in important decisions, crucial decisions, women are left out, especially decisions that would lead to violence, that would lead to war. Okay. And because I think, because of this nurturing, our gift of nurturance, our gift of life, women have this, I cannot exactly put it, because I see images, while I'm describing it, I see images of the faces of women, of the mothers, of the children who were taken hostage. The pain, you could not describe. The pain in their eyes. They were not crying, but you could see the pain. If they're just given the chance, if they were consulted in decisions, I'm sure that they would say no to violence, no to war. We have records that show that women would provide a great force, would always provide alternatives, would think of other ways aside from going into war, of becoming violent. Perhaps it's high time, really, that women would voice out, would be very active in policies, in governance, especially in peace talks, in negotiations. It is one thing. Negotiations are one thing of women there. They provide a different perspective. They see things that are not seen by men.
If I recall back, I think I'm where I am because of that background that I acquired with the women at the grassroots. I was, before I became a minister, I was involved in mobilization of resources with the communities. I think I got a lot of experience from there. And actually, if you look at the women in leadership positions today in Rwanda, came from there. They came from the women NGOs, they came from community-based organizations. There were people who are very much involved with the civil society. And today, they are the ones who are providing the leadership. So I think what's important is to stick to our principles, be honest, be active, be articulate. Women at the grassroots are a force, you know. This is a positive force that they need to be strong, and they need to know that they are the ones who made us who we are. They are the ones who, we are products of the grassroots women. All these women you've seen at the top who are involved at the policy level were down there, you know. That's how we're identified. You know. It's because of this accumulation of good initiative, good activities. And when we talk about the policymakers, I think every policymaker should have to listen. People have to listen to these women. You just can't ignore them because they are the key. If I look into my province, a number of these community-based organizations, the NGOs, are doing very good work. Actually, they are providing the leadership in most of these government programs and government policies. They are the ones who are doing the implementation. So it's important we get the feedback. They give us statistics, they document the work they are doing, you know, so that they can always show this is more focused, they should be concentrating more on this, you know, because I think they are providing their leadership at their levels, and they are doing a lot to influence our policy, especially in my country.
In the Southern Sudan peace process, I came in late. Our government came in late into the process. And every time I asked where the women were, you know, it was like people would say, what are you doing? It's fragile enough. If you introduce the women, it'll not work. And, you know, I heard this all the time, and it used to really frustrate me. But, you know, Canada's a small country, so we don't wield that big a stick. But when it came to the Darfur peace process, I had learned some skills, and I was in the process right at the beginning. And I was listening to my colleagues bring the rebels from different areas in Europe. They had a UN plane pick them up. And so I said to the mediator, he was very open to this idea. I said, you're picking up all these rebels all over Europe and bringing them to Abuja. Why can't you do the same? So, and he agreed. He agreed, and he picked up the women from the camps. The men, majority, if there is anybody from Sudan, don't kill me, this is my generalization. The men, majority were in exile. The women were living in the camps, and they brought almost 17, 18 women to the peace process. And the peace process changed. Sadly, things have deteriorated. It changed because when people were talking about water rights, the women would say, what are you talking about? This river has dried away a long time ago. There is no river here. Or, you know, and they would talk about, you know, food, and they'd say, well, that root doesn't exist. What are you talking about? So, you know, what it does is, I'm a firm believer after being in this process, it's not about just having men, and it's not about just having women. We have different ways of interpreting. The Creator brought us both together because we have different issues, we have different ways of looking at things, and we need both, the women and the men at the table. And when the women were sitting at Abuja, they completely changed the process. They changed it because it was practical. You know, and I'm really generalizing, but the men were positioning who's going to be the president, who's going to be the vice president, and the women were saying, when will my children get food? When will my relatives get water? And it changed the dynamics. It's just how we look at things, because we look at putting food on the table, and so how do we do that? And what I was very important was that the women had a different perspective, and the mindset is different. You need to change the mindset. In the beginning, it was if you bring the women, you will bring women's issues. But water, food, feeding the community are not women's issues. They're the community's issues. And so whenever people talk about women's issues, I think we need to challenge that And we need to change the mindset about that. That's really important.
Idris was an 18-year-old young man who dreamed of improving his life the way he lived it. And he was from a working class family living in Kandahar on the outskirts in a mud hut. And being a refugee in Pakistan, he was able to learn English at a young age, so naturally he was a good interpreter, or he was a good interpreter for the many military personnel as well as the international aid community that is in Kandahar. So he got a job as an interpreter. One day, leaving his home in a bright daylight, bright morning, he did not know that he was going to say his last goodbyes to his family. He was blown up in a car with 18 other young men like him who served as interpreters for the American military base in Kandahar. And you can imagine the agony the family felt after his death and the many others. I did not know Idris personally, but I knew the family. So I went to pay respect to his family at his funeral. And when I went to the home and I saw the mother of Idris, I could read in her empty eyes so much that she wanted to tell, so much that she wanted to share but could not say because the words could not speak her emotions. So after about a week, I received a message from her through her sister that she actually called on me and the women network that I have in Kandahar to speak about her, to raise her voice as a call to end this unjust violence, not against her own son only, but against all the sons that we lose on a daily basis in Kandahar. And what her call to us, or what her request to us did, was to encourage us and inspire us that there was a need for women to gather and raise this voice for peace, because it didn't exist. It didn't exist on the ground, where every day, sometimes hundreds of people die because of suicide attacks. So we organized as women, for the first time in the history of Kandahar, a women's call for peace. It was a religious activity, but nevertheless, it was an opportunity for us to raise our voice. And while the international community and the aid world see women as these victims, as these women, poor things because they lose family members and they're always crying and they're always suffering, but I have learned that we're not victims. We need the support of the international community in Afghanistan. We know as Afghan citizens that we have a lot of problems on the ground, and the problems have not been just developed overnight. They're the problems of over 30 years of conflict. But we want the international community, especially the international, the NATO forces and the military, to realize that weapons are not necessarily the only answers to this problem. We want them to stop ignoring the powerful resource that they have, which is women. We've been battling this war in Afghanistan for 7 years, and things just seem to be getting worse and worse day by day. And our challenge as women to the international security forces present in our country is, well, have you taken the initiative to communicate with more than 50% of the population who are suffering so deeply, so hurtfully, and maybe perhaps use their power to change the strategy?